Welcome to another episode of the Real Housewife of the Westside. I'm Jess, your host. Thank you so much for listening. I've been talking about my guest all week here on the regular show, on the Patreon. Her name is Catherine Marino. You guys may know her as the woman in the red coat from 2 weeks ago on the Real Housewives of Orange County, the OC Fashion Week episode. Catherine made quite a splash, no pun intended, haha. On her Bravo TV debut. So there has been, and I'm sure everyone who follows, pop culture Bravo news, there's been some controversy surrounding the episode that Catherine was on. And, I talk on the podcast all the time about what's real, what's not real, inauthenticity, all of that. And when I watched the episode of OC that Catherine was on, I don't know, I just had a feeling that maybe there was another side to the story. So I reached out to Catherine, I got in my car, I drove down to Orange County and sat down with her and talked, and she was very gracious and lovely, and we had a really nice chat. So it's a little bit over an hour. It's a little bit longer of an episode. I did save part of it for the Patreon. So if you are not already a Patreon subscriber, go on over to patreon.com/RHOW. You will find the remainder of the conversation there. But without further ado, we will get into it with Catherine. Okay, well, Kathy, so we connected over Instagram because you had a very notable scene on Real Housewives of Orange County. Unexpected notable scene. Almost 2 weeks ago, right? On Real Housewives of Orange County with the OC fashion show. So first of all, I want to know a little bit about tell me about what your actual job is and what you do with OC Fashion Week and all of that, so everyone knows a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I am the executive producer of Orange County Fashion Week, and I started out as a consultant in 2011, and later on, these boys came to me because I had been running a sponsorship agency for many years, and it became eventually a loyalty agency.
Okay.
During the market crash, I actually built my agency inside a dealership, and I worked really hard, 40 to 60 hour weeks for 3 years for a chance to design a racing tour for North America Aston Martin, and it was probably one of the most fascinating times of my life. And you know how you get those weird signs that come out of nowhere with coming up on the Vanquish, it's the producer of America's Next Top Model, and they're like, you're not going to believe who drove up the Vanquish. I'm like, all right, a girl, thank God, because there's everyone's like a guy, and there's like three girls, and there was one plastic surgeon that flew in, and she was amazing. She just had a baby, and she was like wanting to get on the racetrack.
Oh my gosh.
Can't remember her name, but I met her briefly, but we were so focused on the track day, and I had booked all the instructors, and it was like the best day of my life ever. I loved that day. And then fast forward the following year, I was working with the Italian American Opera Festival and doing their publicity, and that's when these boys came up to me and said, we need your help. We need to produce an Orange County Fashion Week. We have some folks that are trying to impede on our brand and this and that. And they gave me 3 weeks to produce a runway show, which I hadn't done in years because, I was in television broadcast for many years.
Okay.
And coordinating broadcast traffic, and then ultimately doing market research, and then negotiating syndicated buys for Fox. So we would negotiate. This was like in San Diego years ago, and I'm like dating myself. But little did I know, it was giving me the marketing knowledge to understand day parts and audiences and all that stuff, and how to sell into those different types of target markets by the hour,
right?
Or every quarter hour, I should say. And so fast forward to the future, when I came on board, we didn't have any models because their models were database were compromised, and then we also didn't have a runway. And we had 3 weeks to produce this show.
Oh my God.
And so, I was at the time adopted by American Express Travel.
Okay.
So what did I do is I booked a hotel room at the St. Regis. Now it's called Monarch Beach Resort. Yeah. We had Mana Kadar Cosmetics had donated her makeup skills and her makeup artists, and Bettini Zambrea had brought on board their resort wear, and they helped us get started. And I called the Orange County Ballet and the men's aquatic team.
Oh, wow.
And now we got 5,000 models registered.
That's amazing. And that was in 2014?
I think that was, I believe it was 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Okay, so not that long ago, like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it went by,
Wow.
like, God, I can't believe it went by that long.
Yeah.
And it'd been it's a grassroots community event. It's not something that's corporately funded.
Right.
And we had to build brand clout in order to get there. Now we are sponsored by Tony and Guy's headquarters, and Tony and Guy Hairdressing Academy. They are by far the longest running sponsors that we've had. Sephora is now with us for 3 years.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, and we're really excited about the relationships that they brought to us, which we're so grateful for. Bajli Mishka, they are our shoe sponsor. So through it all, we really have been able to build our community event based on our community of models. They bring their parents, and it's not your typical fashion capital event, although we spend like a fashion capital. I mean, if companies were to rank fashion capitals by spend, we would probably be in the top 5, because in 2008 it was 56 billion, and now it's about 45.2 billion in spend in retail. This is excluding LA.
Oh, wow.
So not including the LA market. So it's comparable to, say, the spend in London. And I think London quoted on their press release 40 billion in the next 5 years. So they're not. So, but that's just my little market research hat. I can't, help but notice.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of the interesting thing.
And it's in the spring every year?
It's actually it's in the fall and the spring.
Okay, in the fall and the spring. And you do a different venue each year? Yeah,
it's kind of like weather permitting, and also it depends on the sponsors, because we go by target audience.
Right.
Yeah, so we really... and then we cultivate new audiences every season, so it's always like a very different audience daily.
Right.
So, and that takes a different element altogether, but it's always based on who we bring on board, and we do some covert stuff too, and then we pop it out later, so it's kind of a fun thing that we do. The yacht, became a tradition because we've been doing it for 3 years, so we've actually been a client of Electric Cruises for many years, and their hospitality is by far the best. They are wonderful people. They have been very patient through this whole thing that I had gone through, and they are just a wonderful crew, and we love those guys to death, and they've been a big supporter.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did it come about that, well, first of all, the cast of the show, or the show, like which one came first? Was it an organic?
Yeah. So I can tell you without, any breaking any kind of, whatever preliminary, whatever.
We're just listening to your story.
Yes.
So what happened to?
So before
to you?
Meeting Bravo and any of their production crew whatsoever, or even having a conversation with them, I actually met their publicist. I met the publicist, Bronwyn's publicist, on a business app, and we met over the Ritz-Carlton. And she said, I'm working for this gal, and she's going to be the next housewife. And I said, oh, cool. And she said, her daughter has this dancewear collection, so wouldn't it be cool if, if we bring you on board? And I said, well, yeah, we'd, we'd be happy to support. She said, well, can we have your her daughter, premiere, her collection at your show? And I said, well, oh, yeah, I'd be totally happy to support.
Right.
And then I met Bronwyn at Javier's, and so I went there and met with her briefly and thought she was lovely. And then, a couple weeks later, or a week later, I'm trying to remember, I met her husband, who owns a marketing company. Now, I had hired their publicist as a contractor, so she'd signed our contracts twice.
So as an independent contractor?
As an independent contractor for my company.
And this was their personal publicist?
This is their personal publicist, yeah. And
Oh,
she willingly signed it. So, because we put together a commissionable program, because, we do fundraising for our shows to cover our expenses.
Of course.
So then, fast forward to everything else. They had this idea, blah, blah, blah. And then it brings us to current date where we have our opening day at OC Fashion Week.
And that's what we saw on the show.
Actually, you saw the fifth day, the day 5.
Fifth day.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It goes, and when we show our highlights of our show,
Right.
because we have to feature that on KWHY, you'll see the beginning of the show and the end of that show.
Okay.
So from our point of view, anyways. So, and it was the opening day was held in Irvine.
Okay.
And they had a PAVE Academy dancewear actually premiere the collection with a beautiful performance. We actually have a film of that, but we were getting so much controversy from this recent stint. It was kind of like overshadowing her daughter's collection, which
So they didn't film the opening day.
I don't believe they did, but we did.
Okay.
We filmed it.
Okay.
And
well, and a lot of people, sorry to interrupt you for a second. What a lot of people
absolutely.
don't know, and you and I were talking about this briefly, is that, for reality shows, this is just what I've been told from people that have, former cast members and what have you.
Yes.
They for every 44-minute show, they film, hours and hours and hours of content.
Yes.
So that's the other thing that, you and I were talking about that a lot of people don't know is for this little snippet, there's actually a lot more that really is filmed too.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to remember too.
Yeah, and that's their thing. Whatever they do with that film reel, I guess, is what they want to do. I mean, we film as well, and we actually have a waiver that is connected to our boarding pass. And the reason why is because we are filming for ourselves, for our own television network. So that actually includes everybody, including their entire production crew.
Yeah.
They sign that waiver the moment they accept a boarding pass with us, and the moment that yacht departures on maritime law.
Right.
So,
and that's very standard. Any,
Exactly.
show that I've ever been on, whatever, they always have you do a waiver and you take a picture with it and whatever. And that's, very standard.
And in this case, we, what's different about ours is that, when we're filming, that's the thing is that, you have to have everybody's permission.
Right.
So, and granted, just like you're on a plane, you don't see the terms and conditions on every single boarding pass like Cathay Pacific. It's on their website, and it's called the contract of carrier. So in reality, you can't really, if you've got passengers and you've got a moving vessel, you can't compromise, any of that.
Right.
That's another story.
Yeah, that's that's some minutia that we.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you guys premiered, and then 5 days, and then what we saw on the show was the 5th day of the show.
The 5th day of OC Fashion Week.
The 5th day, which was on the yacht.
Exactly.
Okay. So the whole controversy, I guess, one of the characters, her mother was there, and so I'm just going to say from my perspective what I saw. So because this is the other thing, I felt like it wasn't, I kept rewinding and going back, and I'm like, you can't really see what happened. So she says, I'm going to go to the restroom, I think. And you see her kind of go to the restroom, and then all of a sudden it cuts to her saying to this gentleman, you're grabbing me by the arm, don't touch me, but you don't really see what happened.
Yeah, and my students we had 6 students on the staircases, and they told me that they got shoved, and the other one almost hit her head on the door. So I just interviewed them because I didn't realize I didn't hear their side of the story yet.
Right, because we didn't see, as a viewer, I didn't see any of that happen.
Yes.
So that, I think, is what, as far as viewers go, that's what we're confused about. Like, well, what happened between I'm going to the bathroom and, you can't touch me? Because it was a very visceral response from her. So it was like, what exactly happened? And then the other thing that was at least confusing to me as a viewer is that, so then the main character on the show come back and say, to you, why are you, what's going on with my mother? But as a viewer, I'm saying, wait, but you didn't see what just happened. The only thing that I've heard is story in the press about the housewife's mother called this gentleman a really derogatory name.
Yeah. So I think I wasn't there for that. No, I only know what they tell me.
Right.
So, but I wish I can say I was there for that, but I only know what they told me.
Yeah.
And my students are trusted, and Chris has an excellent reputation. He's a good man.
Yeah, he was the gentleman in the purple suit, right?
suit.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why we were shocked. Like, why would you mistake him for a security guard? That's
he wasn't dressed like a security.
Yeah, and he, I think, okay, so in my opinion, I think what happened was he was just being considerate, and he saw this. We had a personnel area. Our personnel area was that, and maybe he overheard me say, keep everyone downstairs because we're getting ready for the show.
Right.
And we had a gal that was not employed by us.
Okay.
Who was telling them that it was okay to go upstairs. So I think that was the miscommunication. And so my students said that the woman was very rough and already irate. They didn't want to. And I think I mentioned to them, don't touch her, or don't. We didn't know don't engage because this is their training ground. We have a program called Fashion for the Future. So their first 2 seasons they intern, and then we give them project management.
Oh, cool.
Experience. And so they're on their 3rd year with me.
Oh, wow.
Or 3rd season, I'm sorry. And so and they're taking note of this. And I said, just kick back, and then that's when you see her go, what's your name? And I said, what's your name? And she says, I'm such and such. And then I go, oh, well, because I don't know who you are, sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I said that because
I didn't think that sounded rude. The way that she responded to it, it was like as if you said, like, I don't know who you are, bitch, like something like that. But I'm like, it didn't sound rude to me. It just sounded like you were saying, like, well, we didn't know who you. But what was she mad about? Was she mad that she couldn't get where she thought she needed to go?
I don't know. One of our gals said that she got turned down for drinks downstairs, and so that could have been it. Maybe on a day when I couldn't get a drink, maybe I would get mad too. But hey, I don't know. It was whatever her beef was that day. But I mean, it was. I mean, I think what blew me apart was I was trying to resolve and find the issue out, but they kept deflecting the questions. So I think I said to them, are you trying to blame me for something without collecting the information? I feel like you're making a false accusation.
Right.
And she deflects it.
You mean so when the girl from the Housewives came over and talked to you?
Yeah.
Because when I watched it yesterday, she was just like, what happened? And you did say, you were like, listen, I don't think, before we go there, why don't we talk about what actually happened?
Exactly.
Because it did seem like a miscommunication.
And that could be part of, and that was where my head was like, okay, Kathy, you can either stand here and be the producer, but just so you know, Kathy, they're pulling you in now. You're becoming a character on the show. And I'm not casted. I am not paid. I physically chartered the yacht, and I signed the contract with the yacht. And here I have, this fiasco on my hands that I'm trying to conduct. And then that's when the other gal came, and I never even knew who she was. I didn't know.
The other housewife.
Yeah, I didn't know who she was. It was just like, what?
Because then it started turning into like a thing.
Yeah, it came into a thing. And you know what? Granted, I did lose it. I lost it. And I'll admit to that, and I will own it, because any business owner doesn't want their company damaged.
Right.
Any business owner doesn't want somebody to tell them how to run their company and how to run their business. Any business owner that is running a production doesn't want someone to get things out of hand. And I think, and I was partially also in a bit of a crisis. I could not call the police because we were in the middle of the water.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
So I called the captain when I was downstairs, and everybody thought that, she was thrown off and she was fired or something. And I was like, oh yeah, because I'm the MC, right? I'm like the party planner pushover, and it was kind of really interesting because it's interesting how they decorate like that,
Well, yeah, they can. Well, and that's another thing. A lot of people, or maybe the layman viewer doesn't know, is like if you are. Now, you're not a cast member of the show, so it's a little bit different. But when you're a cast member of a show like this, you literally sign a contract saying they are allowed to edit in whichever way they please, and they can basically, story. I'm making story in quotes. They can story anything to kind of, you're kind of at their mercy. So that's the other thing that, and you and I were talking about this over text, is that I talk about this all the time with the Beverly Hills show, with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because, you know, just living up there and knowing some of them, it's like what really happens and what happens on the show is like two different things.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think I don't know the method to their madness.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty evident, you know, to a certain degree, what you see is captured. And then, but what's weird is that, you know, when I worked in television 20 years ago, the audience couldn't touch you. They couldn't contact you. So, you know, you get
social media.
If you get these crazy stalkers, you get people, you know, it's a whole different thing. And so it's actually, and it's surprising to me that there's not any kind of caution to that, because, you know, you don't know, you know, how that's going to escalate and how that's going to change things. And so, you know, I mean, to me, I mean, did I take it personally? I mean, you know, hey, it's entertainment. I get it. What I take personally is if they're like on a witch hunt to ruin my career because they want everybody to know that this storyline is pertinent for the ratings to see that I go down. And, you know, this is a community event.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, the feeling that I'm getting is that, you know, I'm not a cast member, so I think my opinion's not confidential.
Right.
So I think that, you know, as a participant, their trade secrets, whatever it is that takes their magic for their production, that's all them.
Right.
All their editing, and I'm not going to reveal any of that. But as an opinion person going through it and analyzing my life and putting it up on YouTube and sharing my personal opinion on the post experience, I think that that's not confidential. I'm not, you know, that's my personal opinion of, you know, my experience and what and the after effects of it. And I don't feel that's something that, you know, they have any right to, you know, hold me to, because it's now affecting my personal life. But I think that, you know, overall, I mean, I look back at the time, I was pretty devastated. But now I look back and it's actually kind of funny, you know, to see some of the way it was edited and the clips and everything like that. You know, and then people have been like trying to shame me, but, you know, but shame me for being for saying that I'm not a professional, or I lost it and things like that. I'm like, hey, you know, you watched, didn't you? And the ratings went up, I think by point.
Right. Which is a big, well, that's the thing. It's any, as they say, any publicity is publicity.
Exactly. Right. And so mission accomplished. My mission that night was to bring awareness to anti-bullying and suicide
so talk
prevention.
A little bit about that, because that's the other thing that, you know, I didn't know as a viewer. That was kind of a little, and whatever. I mean, I'm not the editors. I'm simply talking as a consumer of the show. So talk about what the backstory is, because that's really important, and that's actually an amazing cause that you are working on in a proprietor of. So the anti-bullying, and then I mean whatever you're comfortable sharing with the model. and all
thank
that.
you. Yeah, so this is all public information, nothing confidential. So when we started Orange County Fashion Week years ago, we had a designer at the age of 10. She was our youngest fashion designer come on board, and she had an anti-bully campaign because she was criticized for being overweight. And so she decided to make her own clothing line. She came back, won the Celebrity Cruises World of Difference Award. Oh, wow. And we were making announcements daily. So this fashion bully speech was happening daily at OC Fashion Week. So by the time I was like sucker punched, then you got an irate version of me going like, you know. And so, of course, I was just like, I just got sucker punched. Yeah. But I still got to make this PSA public service announcement, so it's going to come out this way. Sorry. And I end up doing this like almost Bobby Brown, like I'll do what I want to do, you know, kind of like throw down to get my point across. But and then also last year we lost a model to suicide, and her name's Natalia Catalina. I was shocked because we auditioned her in February. Stunning girl, like she modeled for Calvin Klein and all these different brands, just beautiful and funny. She was hella funny and witty. I mean, you'd never you'd never know. You would never know. And when I went to her funeral, it was really interesting to hear her life through other people. And there were only maybe about 36 people there. She didn't have a lot of family. And
How old was she?
I think she looked like she might have been only like 32, still kind of young, you know, but she was a stunning beauty. And so I decided, I was really emotional too. I decided to do a tribute to her. So on opening day, and I actually have footage of opening day where I announced the tribute, and I say, this one's for Kat, you know, and we're doing an anti-bully campaign, you know, because words are things. Words are, they resonate with people. And we found out that she had a difficult childhood, you know, because, you know, even though your mind knows like, hey, you know, I'm not going to take that, you know, and screw them or whatever.
Of course.
Your body doesn't, if your body is exposed to it so many times, something in
you have an emotional response.
and your body's going to go accept. And so these verbal abuses that come in and ongoing and berating people like that, you know, especially if they're public, you know, you're just creating a groundswell of, you know, creating them, you know, over time, the body is conditioned to accept these. And so in my personal opinion, and I'm not a doctor, but I think what she was going through is she was distressed when, you know, something didn't happen with her relationship. And of course, when you're not equal to 1%, you know, equal to 100% of yourself, and you're operating at 50% because someone told you you weren't enough, then you can't sustain the ability to last through an endeavor like that where, you know, and then she hung herself in her boyfriend's closet.
Oh,
so that was really we were like, I mean,
oh my God.
Yeah. So we were really, so that opening day, I was already emotional. I was like, hey, we're doing this anti-bully theme. There's no fat shaming. There's no words, you know, cyberbullying. There's no, little did I know that I was going to be the epitome of like, you know, being criticized of fashion bullying. That was kind of funny. Like, oh, she's a fashion bully. And then they put my photo up and I look so big. So I want to thank all those people that called me fat because I'm down 5 pounds. So kiss my... Well, no, I'm kidding.
Well,
but
you look amazing. And that's the other thing with, you know, I was talking about this
television ads pounds.
Well, exactly. And I always, you don't know this, but listeners of my show know this, that I am, you know, I dealt with an eating disorder for 30 years, and I talk a lot about that. I'm very open about that, and it's one of those.
High school too. I was like in high school, yeah.
So you know, and it's also, you know, what you see and what other people see are two different things. But of course, when you go on TV, and I was just talking about this with a friend last week. It's what you wear and how you wear is so, and so even if you're wearing the wrong like cut of something, it can look one way on TV, and that's another. I mean, that's like a whole separate discussion. But like the cyberbullying
I was like double layered that day too because I get cold easy. So I was like, I know, it was like double. And I have my mohawk, but I love my mohawk. That was by Sarah over at Tony and Guy Hairdressing Academy. They did my mohawk, and then Shop XOXO did my earrings, and then I had, you know, Diana Matis from Chanel. She did my makeup. So I mean, I had really like a cool crew.
You looked great. But you know what? And this is the other thing I think is that people. Well, there's two things. One, and I talk about my soul cycle teacher all the time. My soul cycle teacher always says, what other people say about you is more about them than it is about you, which I totally believe. Because if you're feeling just gross and icky and whatever inside, of course you're going to project that.
Yeah, it's like Exorcist.
Right.
Well, remember the part where she pukes?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
That, and the other thing, I think it's like, no, you know, if people... you know, feel a certain way or they adopt a certain mentality, it's like no matter what you say or do, they're gonna find, you know, they just need permission on who to target. I mean, because even if we cleared out, you know, our end and got our story out there and said, oh, this is what happened, or, you know, they don't care. They just want to play team sports. Right.
At the end of the day, and they don't, you know, and, you know, at some point, you know, you got to look at it. Like those clips were pretty funny. Like some of them were really hilarious, you know, I mean, like, you know, and, you know, the way it was cut and edited, and, you know, you see this party princess in a poof dress. I mean, like, you know, and she's And then you got this prune-faced Punky Brewster coming up the stairs with a tantrum attack, stirring trouble. I mean, it was comedic. I got to give him that. You know, I think the venue added a really great enticement because, you know, you're seeing this beautiful yacht, you know, and some people are like, why would you put a runway on the yacht? People love it. It's an excursion. It's
a cool idea. I know there's a fly.
Go away, fly. I know. So, and because the sun comes down and, you know, we had other designer collections like, you know, Jessie J collections, and we had, Unaffected on there, and Dr. Perry Jones, or Perry Jones collection. So, and they didn't, granted they weren't the center of the show that night, but they paid to be there, and they were registered designers. So, and that's not anything confidential. Those are things that are publicly known. Like anybody that registers with us, they all make a contribution. They all goes towards our production costs, and that's no secret. But for the most part, that was a really interesting night. And it was like weird to be like going, okay, Kathy, because I had like 500 thoughts in my head, like, oh my God, what's happening to me? Oh my God, you're pulling me in. And then who's this chick? And so I'm having two different conversations. And in my conversation to Bronwyn, you hear me ask her, I say something to her. I go, I see what you're trying to do. So in the video, I say, I see what you're trying to do. Because that's when she's deflecting the answer to the question. And that's like public, that's not confidential. I mean, you can see that. The other thing too was when Kelly then approached me, first she says, let's be professional. I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I think what it was is they started yelling, and I wanted to get them on the microphone for everybody to hear these clowns, right? Mm-hmm. So I started putting the microphone in their face, like, what did you just say? And so when she came up to me, she called me dumb shit twice, but you can't hear it because it goes beep.
Oh, beep. Okay.
And that's when I go, that's defamation. Oh, so some people think I just said it out of the thin blue, like I was reaching for the air. But it's common knowledge. I mean, the girls doing that on every episode, right? I mean, so like, why would that be a big deal, or why would that be confidential?
Right.
So, it's just that this time they decided to bleep it out. And so at that point I was like, what did you just say? Get your ass over here. I was like, I'm going to tear you. I was like really like upset because, at this point it was chemically, it was a different minefield. I was just like, I had 500 thoughts going in at the same time. And in my head, I'm like, I still have to do the anti-bully announcement, And it came out like, because it was just like, you see, it was like getting sucker punch on my right face and then my left face.
Right.
And then psycho and then wacko and all these things. And I was like, well, I'm still going to make the announcement. And sure, I'm like their sacrificial lamb tonight.
Yeah.
But, people are going to find out. And also we got everybody to talk about it. We got awareness brought about it, maybe in this indirect way, whatever. But the good thing is that people are talking about it because it's real. Cyberbullying is real. After that, I got, of course, all these cyberbullies like playing team sports, like, and I've been following him for years and you suck and you're not professional. I'm like, well, this is not a professional show. Hello. Otherwise you wouldn't be watching it. Like, and the other question I would ask is like, what would happen if I did nothing?
Well, then it wouldn't be.
It'd be like everybody would fall asleep.
Right. Right.
They'd be like, like our milk and cookies,
newsworthy or whatever.
It would be stupid. It was like, if I went back downstairs, then what? Then the tooth fairy and whoever her mom was, it's not going to, it wouldn't do any justice for them. So there was that alternative, but some of them are like, some folks are taking it personally. Change the channel if you don't like me.
Right.
Come on.
Well, one thing that they didn't really address, I think that was like a big confusion, was one, we didn't know, the anti-bullying platform, and we didn't know obviously about this awful story about this girl who unfortunately took her own life and all that. So we didn't know that beforehand. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of see how, okay, if I'm an editor of the show, then, okay, I'm going to make it look like this, the whole thing that's going on that the housewives are watching. The whole show.
And that was, on their end, they have their own storyline. So they were true to their storyliner.
Right.
And,
right.
However they wanted it. But for me, I didn't know I was casted accidentally.
Right.
And so I wasn't prepared. I didn't have the mindset.
Right.
Because I was like still on my itinerary. Like I got to announce the sponsors. I have to make the suicide. And I don't think it wasn't shown on it, but there were two women sitting in the front that when I announced the death of our model, they started laughing hysterically. And so people didn't see the people laughing at me and heckling me. So, and that's not confidential because you could see it in the show, but your focus is not on that. Your focus is on, oh my God, look at her acting like, crazy woman. It's like, well, look around, look at who they're laughing at.
Right.
And they're laughing at our cause.
Yeah, and
that's why. And then they spin it like, oh, it's fashion bullying. Like I'm the bully. So I'm like, so you scoff at our cause, and and then the two women, I actually brought the microphone up to their face and I said, "Are you laughing?" And I called them out on it, but that's not in there. Right. So, But I was, afterwards, I was pretty devastated because, I was going through, it was a state of crisis. I needed to call the police. And get the yacht because this is a moving vessel. Mm-hmm. There are passengers and that yacht needed to return to dock. It needed to return to dock and drop off everyone. I was convinced by their staff and everyone just like, Kathy, your reputation. I'm like, my reputation's gone. Like, you guys just like went and sucker punched me on national television.
It's interesting because that's not the way I saw it at all. I saw, and one of the reasons why I reached out to you and why I wanted you to come on the podcast was knowing a little bit, quote, how the sausage is made, I think is how I view the show. Uh-huh. So, but I saw it as, oh shit. Like, they're making this a thing, and this is just personally how I feel. I wanted to know, okay, what really happened? I viewed it as, okay, something, just when the mother of the housewife, the Dr. Deb lady, when she went, quote, like, goes to the bathroom or whatever, to me, it looked very choppy. Like, okay, what are they not showing us?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, there's another story here.
Yeah, it was like I was
where
getting
my
punked.
mind immediately went. Right. I don't think a lot of people realize watching these shows that it's not, at least this is my personal opinion, you can't take what they show you at face value.
Yeah, you got to keep it entertainment. So there's
and at the end of the day, it's entertainment.
Yeah, and then but people like comment like, contacting me saying they want to tear my face off or. I mean,
that's
those are things
going
that are
too
like,
far.
Yeah, so they don't separate that from entertainment, and so it's funny because if Rob was like, "Hey, Kathy, there's stuff that you have to keep confidential." I'm like, most of it's already public, like all the stuff that you already filmed in there, so it's pretty obvious. But what's happening on my ongoing life, has been affected.
Right.
So
and you not being an actual cast member of the show, you didn't sign up for that.
I didn't sign up to be a cast member.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is, that I think people don't realize, people like, okay, on any Housewives franchise, when they're a housewife, they sign up for that. So they sign up for a certain level of, public consumption, opinion, all that. But when you are just kind of a bystander or a player in it,
yeah, we provided the venue. I just didn't think that, I don't know. It's kind of a weird. I mean, maybe like some conversation, but I didn't think I was being part of a dispute.
No,
so.
It turned into. So what? Okay, so there's obviously they're probably going to talk about it on the reunion and what have you. They're going to say their side of what happened,
and now they're gonna take me out of character, and they're gonna go after my professional life and say that I was unprofessional in real life. they're not going to go, oh yeah, let's, you know, they got to stay in character.
Right.
But
for
my
their
life,
storyline.
I have to continue to live.
So are you able to say what the repercussions of this have been for you, or what's going?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for me, I have been blessed with really wonderful sponsors that aren't, you know, that could just change the channel,
Right.
you know, and know that at the end of the day, it's entertainment.
Right.
You know, as far as like the public feedback, you know, that was disappointing to see that my first appearance on television, because, you know, I'm always behind the camera,
Right.
is going to be received publicly that way. It's not something that, you know, you strive for, like, yay, I got attention and now I'm getting dogged, you know. It's not
Right.
Anything like that. And us, you know, I mean, that show is what it is. I mean, you gotta, you know, at the point where I was, you know, becoming Kathy Marino on the show, you know, I was like, gee, do I want to be a wuss, or no, I'm not. No, let's just come in on the fun. Let me take the microphone. Let me show you how it's done, girls. And so I'm going to take the lion's share of your airtime, and la la la, and out I went my little groovy dance. And I was just like, at that point, I was like, you know, I was put in a situation. That's how I dealt with it. I guess that's how I dealt with crisis. It was
Right.
a crisis for me.
Yeah.
And if people think it's funny, then, and we got awareness brought out, you know, about anti-bullying, then I guess mission accomplished.
Right.
But
Right.
you know, if I take a hit or whatever, but hey, if it saves someone's life, then fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a few tabloids or whatever, or I don't know what else to make of it. But
Right.
it was very circumstantial. You know, and of course, you know, if they're going to come out in the public and talk about it on television, on national and international television, I'm going to clean up what they say that's incorrect or false about me.
Right.
So, and, you know, and I really do believe that they're still under my waiver, because we have a contract to carrier. So, they have an obligation to me as well.
Right.
So,
right.
but I think that, I mean, it's definitely a learning experience. That's why I've been like documenting everything, because, you know, I mean, would I change anything? Maybe I would have returned the yacht back to port. You know, but would I change how I reacted? I think I would not, because, you know, I was in a tight spot.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. If anyone is in that, especially, I mean, I do a podcast, but I don't love like being, you know, even like on my wedding day, I was like, I don't want all the attention on me.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things. Like if you're hosting, it was your event and you're hosting it, and you have an obligation to advertisers and sponsors and all these people. And
yeah, that was
then
the
you're
thing. I was in a contract with sponsors, and I can't breach those
Right.
contracts to push that. You made a really interesting point, because that's exactly it.
You still
And-
have an obligation, and you still have to hold up your end of the deal.
I still have to, and that's including Mr. Chris Keys, who's a sponsor, and he didn't sign their waiver. He did not sign their waiver. I think they took his picture, but
He's the gentleman in the purple suit.
yes, he
Right.
did not sign their waiver. So
Okay.
and so that's the interesting thing, is that, you know, here you have a situation where you're pulling, you know, can you impede on a company's contracts because, you know, for ratings? I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like,
Yeah, that's a tricky. Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that, because once those, I don't know which contract kind of
exactly
supersedes the other one. Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask you. Like, we didn't really get to see like the aftermath of everything. It was just all kind of like that was.
Oh, you're going to see it on our video. So we're going to have
great.
that air.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody will
Okay.
see. We actually had a kick-ass party on the second one,
good.
because everybody was relaxed after that.
It kind of broke the
They were
ice.
like- and we were partying. They said it was better than the first ride, so everyone was partying on the second yacht ride. And Electric Cruises was great, because they did that for us.
Oh, that's nice.
We asked all the designers and the models, like, please don't get out of your clothes. Please stay one more time, so that this audience that paid for this ticket can
Right.
board and take the second ride. So we once we dropped off everybody, we went and partied for another
good.
hour, and then
Good.
came back.
And was the cast all there for that, or they left?
No,
They left.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, got it. So the whole. Okay, so I want to be very cognizant of what you can say. So the misunderstanding with Dr. Deb, I don't know if that's her
or their storyline.
Yeah, her storyline was. Do you want to comment at all on what if she called Chris? Do you want to comment on that at all? Or do you want to just...
Yeah, maybe that's a good Chris question.
Okay,
because I wasn't there for that.
Okay,
but I could tell you one thing is I felt the disparity with social class. Maybe I wasn't blonde enough.
Interesting. I didn't think about that.
And I'm Asian. And I felt like they were treating me like a subordinate. But hey, if that's their character,
Right.
then own it, I guess,
Was it just because, do you think it was because you weren't, quote, a member of the show? So you were...
Possibly, it's just part of that, special celebrity stardom. Makes it their special sauce.
Right,
I don't know.
right.
I don't know what to say much about that.
Because so if I'm understanding this right, and
I'm not vanilla for them. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. I felt disturbed by it because, I was responsible for every single passenger on that yacht.
Well, that's the other thing that I don't know that a lot of people understand. It's being that it's your event and a lot of the models are young girls. So you or your company, whatever, that responsible also for their safety too, right?
Everybody's safety. So,
And was that one of the issues when, so if Dr. Deb says I have to go to the bathroom,
they
and
wanted
I can't
to throw
go
me
there.
over the yacht. That was the one thing. Well, Bronwyn says in the trailer, the tease, I could have thrown her over the yacht or throw her over the boat.
Right.
And then she says it again, and after the experience, explaining to her husband, I wanted to throw her. And do feel like there was intent to really throw me over.
Really?
The
They
yacht.
were that...
Yeah, because that's actually considered, not only is it a felony, but it's actually a federal offense. And no waiver in court will stand for that. You can't do that. No little
Right.
waiver is going to do
Right.
that. Anybody who sign a waiver, no, you cannot be above the law.
Well, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting take on that. But that was, and if I had injuries below the waist or anything, it's not like any amount of money would recoup any kind of normal life I would have, after that.
If, God forbid, anything happened.
Yeah. So, there was a lot of things that, and I know we're going in between being a character and then real life.
Right.
Well, but if it affects your real life and you break your back, then what?
Yeah.
So, and these are just my opinions on the effects of, being on a reality
it's a
show.
private citizen. You're allowed to
Talk about my opinion.
From what I have experienced in this is that your personal opinion about what your end of the story, or this is what, in my opinion, this is what happened, my side of the story. Everyone is allowed that. That is free speech. Everyone is allowed that.
Exactly. So. And, I think if anything, be cautious about, I don't know.
Yeah.
And there has to be a different protocol about going about it. But, this is definitely interesting because, but the press has been very kind to me.
Well, that's good.
I was really surprised to see some of the articles.
Have been saying you should be the next new housewife.
I know. I was surprised about that.
You
I was
the balls to stand up to them. Well, because that's what I was thinking. Oh God, if that was me, I feel like a lot of people would just be like, oh shit, kind of crouch down or whatever. But you held your own.
Oh, I know, because I was in safety mode.
Well, right, yeah,
yeah. I was like, what? What did you say? And I needed to get control back of the.
Right. Well, because at the end of the day, you need to move things along, and it's the
Exactly.
and that's another thing that I think is kind of odd
but I was really off my rocker at that point because I was just like, I'll just keep talking on this mic all night long. And so
and that could be like a fight or flight kind of thing too. If you get triggered, and also if someone is coming at you like that, that's
like
what
mama
do you
bear.
do? Well, exactly. That's your basal response, is to just be like, okay, well, I'm gonna
beast it out.
right.
But yeah, no, exactly. And maybe, I don't know, they're like, oh, she's a hypocrite because she's saying, she's standing up for bullies and she's a bully herself. I'm like, let's consider, like, come on.
I'm trying to figure out what could have been, who were people saying that you were bullying? Oh, the girls on the show?
Yeah.
Because
I spoke out?
Because you respond.
Because I was standing up to them? I mean, so I don't know. That was weird. Or maybe because I shoved the mic in their face. Like, that was
because you were like, you talk. Okay.
And I didn't realize that because I didn't have my glasses on, so I can't see my complete radius. And so I think I was in shock.
Right, because it's a lot going on, and and
I saw previous episodes, and I see what shock does to people. Like,
well, that's the other thing. Yeah, that's another thing, is that until you're in that environment, and like I told you, my friend who was on Beverly Hills, she's like, you don't know what it's like when you're in this environment and you're being filmed. And some people, this is the other thing that kind of the secret sauce or whatever, but some people, when they are on camera, if they are cast members, I'm not talking about anyone specific, I'm just saying in general, they, will know what to do to amp it up. And if you are a person that isn't used to that, it's a weird thing to have happen.
Exactly.
So what are cast members on the show? What are they saying?
They say they're like suing me for something, and I don't even know on what grounds.
Because they're saying what the woman, the mom, was trying to go to the bathroom, and someone prevented her from doing it, and
she doesn't go to the bathroom anyways, and she's in a non-personal area.
Well, that's the other issue, was because I took it as
a client at risk too. Because what if Chris they put him in a situation? He has a baby on the way. We can't. And Netflix just came out with a movie about those 4 African American men that were put erroneously in jail for how many years, and they were 15 years old.
Right,
15-year-old kids. I mean, you don't want a repeat of that,
right?
For
and that's what
fame.
And this is just me saying what's out in the press. Is there's articles that I read that said that possibly that Dr. Deb maybe, called him a racial slur, and which we don't know if that, you weren't there for that, so you don't know if that happened or not.
I mean, I could say that, just observing the show, like after it's aired, and that's not confidential, observed, and I felt, an air of social class differential, and not being of that because we were treated like subordinates, and we were referred to as subordinates. And so, of course, in press, because it affects our daily business life, we are going to correct that.
Right. And anyone would.
Yeah, anyone would.
Because you have a business too. Right.
That's why I was like wondering, like, why would we get this reminder about a confidentiality? It's like, we have our lives to live,
Right.
And it's like, and it's really interesting.
Well, do you think that part of it is because the show hasn't finished airing yet and the reunion hasn't aired, that they just don't want like the aftermath of it out until after that? Because I know that's a big thing. Like, just, until the show is done airing, you're not allowed to say X, Y, and Z, whatever, for storyline purposes. Do you think it's because of that, or do you think it's more because of like, we want to control the narrative and we don't want, okay.
I mean, that's, I guess it's like we're stuck between reality and real women living a life,
Right.
I'm a real woman and I'm just trying to live my life.
Right.
Stuck in this dramedy, for lack of better words, that, used me as a sacrificial lamb. I mean, that's not anything confidential. But, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing. And the time when I worked in television, the time now, the times have changed. So,
Right. Totally.
and it's interesting to see how that affects things and the outcome of things. So,
Right.
you know, and whether people want to buy it as truth or if they want to take it as entertainment, I'm getting two different types of audiences. I'm getting the type that think, oh, how dare you? Yeah, how dare you even stand up for anti-bullying? You were a bully yourself. And I was like, and then you try to reason with them, but they already made up their mind. They want to
Right.
be a fan of whatever team.
So you haven't, okay, so since all this was filmed and everything, you haven't run into any of them or seen the, okay, so it
Yeah.
hasn't had, okay.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been,
Yeah, so I mean, I've just gone back to work and doing my stuff, and
Right.
so yeah, but that's been pretty much it. Like,
Yeah.
I think from where do I go from here? I don't know. You know, I'm just waiting to see how else people receive me or what they think of me. Not that I never needed their permission to exist to begin with,
Right.
but it's just kind of an interesting time because, you know, people don't. I was wondering why Andy Cohen would say, let's take a national poll, shall we? And ask if Kathy Marino is hireable. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I don't want to be an employee. I'm sorry, but we're living in a new generation of women that can hire themselves. So
Yeah.
wake up, Andy, and get with the program, because if you're going to get a real woman on your show, you got to know that she's not going to go and be someone's employee, and she's going to hire herself. So why do a national poll? So that's what I wanted to.
do you think that he meant it, like, do you think that, like, to the viewers, like, do you think that you would be a good next housewife?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I really didn't follow it that closely. I was just kind of like in shock, when I watched the episode. I wish I filmed my reaction because, some of it I was
Wait, did
laughing.
he do it on Watch What Happens Live or he did it on social media? Because I didn't see that.
I think it was Watch What Happens
It was Watch What
Live.
Happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't watch the whole, I don't think I watched the whole thing. My brain wasn't there and I was having drinks. But I was like, at first I'm like going through shock. And then I was like, that's actually pretty funny. I'm like, I got to give myself a high five. But I mean,
what did most people say?
Well, I heard there was like a lot of articles that came out. I was really surprised. So like one of them was like, throw her 17 million oranges. I think that was in New York Vulture.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know why you didn't even throw her 17 million oranges. She said, sweetheart, with so much condescension, she won my heart forever. I've built a tiny shrine for her.
Well, because I think that a lot of people, like peripheral characters of Housewives franchises, a lot of people, they'll root for the stronger, the stronger, I'm going to call them characters that come up and will, really stand their own and stand up against some of these women. And I think especially with OC, the last couple of years have not been that great. I mean, I don't think.
So what is it about the last few years like?
I don't know. I think because, and I talked about this with some other people on my show. When the show first started a million years ago, it was, I think, really just like real and authentic, and it was literally just following these women's lives.
Yes, exactly.
And then
that's when I watched it too.
As it grew, it kind of became this whole other beast, which has bad things and good things, but the last couple years I feel like the cast changed, and the two new girls that are on it, Emily and Gina, I don't know if I think a lot of people, at least my opinion, like with Emily, the girl who's an attorney or whatever, I think she might just be like too normal for the, for the show. Cause I don't know, but then
they look for characters.
They definitely look for characters, I think. And, I keep saying they need to bring back I would love it if they brought back like Gina from the original show. I think she'd be great. If they brought back Alexis, I think she would be great. Because they need to like spice it up a little bit, and it just gets too, and also the other thing I think that, and I don't remember if I said this to you in privately or on mic, but I feel like, the at least some of the viewers have a pretty good bullshit meter, and they can smell when someone is coming on and producing themselves and trying to be something they're not, whatever. And it's not as fun to, at least for me, it's not as fun to watch as someone who's really just coming in and they're like, listen, I'm going to lay it all out there. This is me. And be fabulous. So I think that could be, that's, one of the reasons that maybe people are connecting with you, because you stood up and you were like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to.
Even my staff, I've never blown up. They've never seen me get angry. They're like, something's wrong. Kathy's off. And so they were like, something's wrong. Go get Kathy. And then they, like 6 of them came. They were like, calm down, calm down. I was like, no, I want to do this. Like, Adam, I'm going to react to it very honestly about it. And what they see is what they get. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If someone has assholeitis, I would be like, honey, that's a good look for you.
But I think a lot of people connect with that, and it's the being.
And I had an allergy. So it's a good thing I didn't break out in Tourette's. I would have that would have been a whole nother episode.
That can also, and I've experienced this, that can also, when you are someone who just is like, listen, this is my truth and I'm going to say it. If you are in a space with someone who doesn't live in that space, that can also trigger them, because they're like, oh shit, like this person is going to see me for what I really am. Fuck, like I'm not comfortable in being, but do you know what I mean? Like if someone is I think that makes people who don't live in that space very uncomfortable, because
they don't know where they
stand, and they don't know. And I think it can be very frightening, because it's like, oh shit, like do you see through all of this bullshit that I'm really putting out there? And if you really do see me for who I really am, then shit, like what does that mean?
Yeah. And to me it was just like, oh, she's purring in my ear, like it's pissed me off. But I mean, it's like, people will get shell shock and they're going to be afraid, and it's a very hostile situation, and it could escalate really bad.
Right.
It could escalate really bad. I mean, it's good that we got the show started right away, but for something like that, it's not like the energy that you put into being hostile like that is just crazy. I mean, I'm glad at least some people thought I was funny. I didn't know I was funny when I'm mad. I was like,
but so they're filming the reunion coming up soon. If they reached out to you and said, will you come on the reunion and tell your side of the story, would you?
I don't know. I think, I don't know if I would. I mean, I would do it if it was me by myself.
Not with the other ladies, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like there's this projectile and consensus that would be made before I could even get my voice out. So it's almost like one-to-one, I would probably do more of a one-to-one and then talk to everybody. Then I could be uninterrupted. But if they're going to come in and project like their biases and their discriminations, or things that they want to, the halo effect where they have that influence on a preset crowd, on a crowd and an audience they've already cultivated for themselves. I don't have that lead-in time. I think if I had a fair spotlight to at least explain myself and not endorse, hey, you should be like me too. I'm not saying that. I was like being entertainment at that point, because I was just like, all right.
I can't remember how many housewives there are this season. I want to say like 6 or 7. But do you think all of them are on the same page as far as their opinion?
I don't know.
I feel like it's just the one.
Really? I don't know. Because I think I saw them do something on video where they...
Oh, did they?
They all agree, like, oh, she hit Kelly. I'm like, I nudged her with the microphone.
Oh, with that?
So they're like trying to create this consensus now, like, and Kelly's like, oh, it was assault. I'm like, oh, I don't know. It sounds like they're setting me up. That's what it felt like. And I don't know if that's confidential because it's out publicly and I'm speaking my public opinion. I'm just putting my disclaimer out there. but I feel like a setup's coming up.
Okay.
Like, unless something else happens, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
Right.
I'll get a call from their attorney's office and say, oh, never mind. But I don't know. I really don't know
didn't
what to
realize there
expect.
was such a separate. I thought it was just like the one issue about the Dr. Deb that, but I guess okay, so it's two separate issues now. Now that Kelly's saying that with the microphone issue, whatever, which could be, I don't know. I mean, that could be interpreted a million different ways.
It could be the segue into the next episode. Maybe like every reporter I meet will like bump me in the chin, and so like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
It could be your thing. Your
But
little.
I was really funny. I was laughing because there was a podcast group and they're in Scotland and they thought it was funny, so they thought it was comical. And so I posted that up in stories because I thought that was really cute. So there's a lot of really intriguing things, with the story. But for the most part, I don't know what else to make of it. I mean, it was an experience for sure.
For sure. Well, we'll close it with this. Let's say, let's pretend like if it was on the reunion and Annie asked you, what is your response to all this? Like, what would you like your, not final say, but what would you like your, I guess, response to this be?
I would probably just say, and I would probably dedicate it to Kat because she passed away, and that would be like, I'm glad we got everybody to talk about it. We achieved our mission. Our mission was to bring awareness. I mean, as comical and crazy as it was, and how crazy and off the hinge I appear, you know what? Mission accomplished. So that one's for Kat. And that's probably what if that whole fiasco saves someone's life tomorrow, that's what I'd be excited about. If somebody stopped being verbally abusive because it's going to save someone's life, they're not going, or they manage themselves better. I don't think when that happened, I said a single cuss word. I said bitch, but I think they take that as a compliment. So, I mean, I was like, right?
That's up for interpretation, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't really think that was a bad word. It was like, oh, now I'm like, oh, housewife potential. She's speaking our language, So, I mean, I look at it that way. That's how I look at it. So, and then whatever else they're going to interpret me as is being unprofessional. I'm like, it's a dramedy. What can I say?
Right.
I was like, forget it. This is my microphone, and I own this, my yacht tonight, and so long. And I just like took the microphone and ran. I was just like, la la la,
And you never know. Next year you could be holding an orange.
That would be funny.
That full circle.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny?
Oh my gosh.
But like, who knows?
You never know. You never know. Well, okay. I want to close out by, in all seriousness, talking about, because you do work with so many amazing groups and you are really, interested in keeping the conversation alive with anti-bullying and all that. Can you tell everyone which let's pretend that whole issue, never happened on the show, what you really, what your platform really is. Can you talk a little bit about that and like what resources can you give people if they want to learn more and whatever information you can our main thing really is Orange County Fashion Week wants to advocate for self-love, really. At the end of the day, you got to be resilient to what comes after you. Because if you're not equal to 100%, you're operating at half-mast, then you need to know that if you can't have your person that completes you, that you could make it. And I think also, and resources like Laura's House for domestic violence, Orangewood Children's Foundation, there's Olive Crest. There's really a lot of wonderful locations that you could go and you could actually have in-person counseling. Hotlines are kind of funny because it's like you call a hotline and I don't know if they're going to be that convincing, like don't jump off that bridge, but I mean, if you just tell someone, right,
and tell someone beyond reason, not someone that's going to say, oh, that's nice. You want to jump off a bridge?
Right.
well, you're all talk. You know, you don't want to talk to that person. You want to find peers that you could trust. And if you can't go to someone at school, go to an after-school program where you could speak to a counselor in private and let them know what you're going through, because and then practice self-love. Even if you, even if you feel good today, because you might meet some narcissistic, crazy asswipe tomorrow, and they're going to rob you of your dignity by telling you you're a dumbass, or rob you and tell you, all these things to try to depreciate your value because they think that they have the authority on you. When you could just tell them to fuck off and then live their own life, and they could fuck themselves, and then they can, find the people that will value their time and give them the love that they deserve, because I think, I don't know why people do that. It's like diarrhea. It's like, it just comes out.
I think it's a way of, when you don't feel good inside, a really not great way of making yourself better sometimes is to shit on other people.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah, exactly. That could be it. And hey, if that's the look they're going for, I was thinking, own it, honey. I was just like, whatever, it ain't my thing. I'd rather go cuckoo than be an asshole. I'd rather just you know what I mean? It's a fine line getting assholeitis. And
assholeitis.
I mean, it's like, that's a serious sickness. And, if it's ready to wear for you, you're the latest fall collection. I mean, so I think that, that's how I would end it at that. I think it's a in-person contacting. What's really great is I love, going to yoga because the mantras are so key, and you're associating with physical body movements that are also liberating your entire spirit and your soul, and you practice it daily. You kiss your knee, you kiss your elbow, you do all these wonderful things, and it's a constant reinforcement. And people don't practice it like a muscle, but you really should. Yeah. It's a really, even if you feel good.
Well, that's what I think. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole other conversation, but yeah, that's one of the things. It's like, once you start feeling good, then it's like, you don't really pay attention to it as much. So then you don't do it, but then it's like, it's a cycle. Then you fall back into.
Yeah. And then it's easy to bite other people's sappy comments because you're like, oh, I don't really look as good today. Right. And if someone calls me fat ass, I was like, yeah, I got curves and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much what I would say, and end with, we got our point across.
There you go. Perfect. So where can people follow you and your endeavors on social media and all of that?
Oh, okay. So I'm at RHOC is my personal Instagram. Kidding. And then, of course, at OC Fashion Week is our community event. Our endeavor is really to endorse that, especially for the youth groups coming of age. Yeah. Because we always get them, majority of our models, they bring their moms too. So we have a lot of model mommies. I call them model mommies. and then we watch them grow up, and they go become attorneys and engineers, and they go to USC, and
that's great.
And they come back and they walk for us. So it's
And when is your next event?
It's coming up this spring. We haven't determined a date yet, but I'll let you know right away.
Okay.
Well, we'll confirm a date. So we're already getting designers signed up right away, and some new sponsors, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, some pretty big ones, which we're really thrilled about. So we'll start seeing some locomotive power behind that soon.
Yeah.
So, but maybe without the drama.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be just all fun.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thanks, Jess.
Talking. I really appreciate it. And we will stay tuned and see what happens. Thank you guys again so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you are not a Patreon subscriber already, go on over to patreon.com/RHOW. You will find today's episode with the remainder of my conversation with Catherine, along with over 70 other bonus episodes to listen to as well. Also, if you guys don't follow me on social already, I'm on Instagram at Real Housewife of the West Side, on Twitter at RHO Westside as well. I appreciate all of you who have already subscribed and left an amazing rating and review. If you have not already and you are so inclined to do so, please do. I really do appreciate it. It does help the podcast. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend, and I will talk to you guys all next week. Bye.